God help me for tackling this topic, but I want us to start having the right conversations, okay? I see you guys' comments and comments like Nigeria is far better than South Africa. Oh, South Africans are lazy. I'm hoping by having this conversation here, we start to focus on what actually matters. Spoiler alert. For me, if I was an immigrant in South Africa, I will be starting to assess where else can I go. Because it is very clear you're not wanted there. And it is very clear the government is preparing to make it tougher for any illegal immigrant and even legal immigrants. It's not an conducive environment to be putting effort and diligence into. Staying there fighting to say, oh, we helped you during apartheid. That's not what they're ready to hear right now. And that's not me condoning what's going on, but also it's important we don't ignore what led to the level of xenophobia that we're seeing in South Africa. And I just wanted to make this video to spell out some things that I think are being ignored in terms of how has South Africa got to where it is and how have South Africans got to how they're feeling. And I'm hoping by spelling out certain basics, certain obvious things, we will start to have the right conversations. Let's start by defining xenophobia, okay? Xenophobia, the fear or hatred of people perceived to be foreign or different. It has deep historical and psychological roots. Its origin can be traced back to several factors such as psychological and evolutionary. Now, let's start with evolutionary. It is normal, right? It's in history, time and time. When somewhere is not working, you move. It's a smart thing to do. It's a smart move. Now, what makes South Africa so attractive to immigrants? South Africa was set up and is set up for colonial settlement. In fact, several farmers who left Zimbabwe went to South Africa because besides farming, there's other things that somebody with money can venture into in South Africa. For a long time, it was referred to a first world country in a third world continent because of the systems and infrastructures put in place. That is the reason why for a lot of immigrants, it just made sense. Now, in the definition, there was psychological factors as to why somebody would choose perhaps to go to South Africa. It's close to home. If I live in South Africa and want to pop back to Malawi or want to go back to Congo, the cost is going to be significantly different compared to somebody who's trying to achieve the same in terms of going back home, but coming from the US, from Asia, or from Europe. It's just easier for somebody to be able to navigate, and it's a fellow African country. So what would make sense in somebody looking to migrate is let me try somewhere close to home where it's working. Top 5 group of immigrants in South Africa are Zimbabweans, number 1. Number 2 is Mozambicans. Number 3 is Lesotho nationals. Number 4 is Malawians. And number 5 is Congolese people. What is so interesting is Nigerians don't even make the top 5 yet. The beef between Nigerians and South Africans is the loudest, but I find it so interesting that they don't even make the top 5. And I think the reason is because Zimbabwe is closer. Mozambique these are all bordering countries, very much bordering countries. And Congolese is the one that's most different in terms of distance. And I think it's because for a long time, Congo has been struggling with its instabilities. I see a lot of comments and I see a lot of feedback of people saying, why would you do this? How can you treat other African people like this? The thing is, the why, the how, quite frankly, doesn't matter. If you are in a place where you call home and you're seeing other people coming who are very zealous, who share a very different moral code to you, a very different understanding of culture to you, you are not trying to be empathetic when in your home you're struggling at work already, you're struggling with opportunities, you're struggling to find decent living conditions, you're struggling to get a decent job, you're struggling to afford decent education, you're struggling for your safety. For a long time before immigrants, South Africa has been known as the rape capital for a reason. The instability in families, the alcohol problems in South Africa, they have been there before immigrants. However, though, we walked into an argument. If we want to be honest, there is a lot of blaming going on, but the problems that exist have been there before. The only challenge is there is not enough to go around. And the people that are coming into South Africa, like I said in my previous video, they will come and they will come there with ambition, and they know where they're coming from, and they're not trying to go back there, or at least they're not trying to go back there empty-handed. Now, that kind of zeal is going to be very, very different to somebody who is local, who is just trying to get by, who has just gotten out of a very, very traumatic apartheid era, and they just want peace. They just want to live a simple, contentful life. I honestly think this is where we're not getting it. I've said it before. The energy you're going to have as an immigrant, you are the one person who has made it to, let's say, Joburg. And you back home, you know that your mom, your auntie, your children, your wife or your girlfriend, they're all depending on you. If you're an immigrant, you need to pay attention, because if you do not have the paperwork to remain in South Africa long term, if you do not have the stability you need to extend whatever paperwork you need to extend to stay in South Africa, you really need to start counting what are you doing there, and is it worth it? Should you start considering a rebuilding somewhere else? Because not only are you pouring your youth in a country that the people don't want you there, and very soon the systems are going to make it very hard for you to grow and to remain there, you are also fearing for your safety, because as we've said before, South Africans at this point are fed up. And the thing is, you've got elections happening very soon in 2024. Politicians will be trying to see, how can I win my race? And they will start to say and do what the majority want, or at least say what the majority want. A lot of immigrants in South Africa right now are experiencing fun and games, extending their visas or extending their permits. And it's just silent in terms of, am I being given an extension? Am I not? The silence is because the government is trying to reduce or change how they have issued out permits. It's going to be much harder for you to get a permit as an immigrant, because they're listening to what the people are asking for. And that is not wrong. Really, that's what a government is for. They are there for the people. And if the people are fed up and they don't want immigrants or this amount of immigrants anymore, what they should do is listen. And you as an immigrant, you need to start thinking, should I be here? Is this where I want to pour my youth into? Is this where I want to build and call home, even if it is a second home? When I'm not wanted, when I have to look left, right every 5 seconds because I fear for my safety. Why would you want to remain there? Why force it? I honestly don't believe it's because South Africans hate other black people. It's just that I think if I was in my home and I've just come out of a traumatic experience, I would want time to at least live and experience my home, just me and my hubby. Me and my family, okay, without any external factors, without any external people. Obviously, reality is that just can't happen. You will always have immigrants, but the rate at which South Africa has had immigrants because of its position geographically has caused a lot of what we're seeing now, and it is what we're seeing as xenophobia. We're past trying to reason now. We're past it. Now the South African government is going to do what they need to do to show their people that they're listening. And you as an immigrant, you're not going to be front and center of mind, unfortunately. Or you may be, but policies will be revamped to make it very thorough, much more thorough, to make sure those that remain are essentially the creme de la creme. Okay, and even if you make that part of the creme de la creme, as I said before, do you want to remain in South Africa? There are other neighboring countries which I'm going to make a video about, of opportunities are just as abundant, and if they're not as abundant, it is much safer, and your exposure to risk or your exposure to threat for your safety is significantly less. You are actually wanted. When you're operating in a system that is for you, it's set up to make you or help you successful, it's a much easier system to navigate. You have to remember, you need to leverage on the energy you've got from the fact that you know where you're coming from, and you know that you can't go there without results. Okay, why apply pressure and energy where you're getting resistance? The idea of starting afresh again might be daunting, but I honestly think the best thing an immigrant can do right now in South Africa is start to think, okay, where else? That is essentially the essence of this video. I wanted to highlight to you some of the reasons, not to justify, but to highlight the reasons. And once we've highlighted them, looking at, okay, what are your options? What can you do as opposed to sticking at this? Now, I'm going to make a separate video talking about what other options, what other countries, what other cities are good for somebody looking for greener pastures in Africa, because I understand obviously navigating in Africa, navigating the visas in Africa, navigating the travel costs in Africa is much easier than when you start to talk about the US, the UK, Asia, etc. Also, there is less of a language barrier typically, and there will be more of a community element that is familiar to home. That is why I'm going to make a video on what other African countries can you consider. And also because I love Africa and I believe we're all one people, and so immigration is a good thing. It's just that we need to just stop forcing where we're not wanted, or where it feels like we're not wanted. Move. Like, let's be borderless, and that is going to be the best way we can just encourage peace and love. If you have anything to add, please do in the comment section. Remember, nothing needs to be unkind, nothing needs to be any other way but educational, insightful, kind, and opinions are free. You can express your opinions, just let it be kind. Anyway, stay safe, and I will see you in the next one.